it's up to them to be policing these things. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, well, I know that what happened was basically apparently Jack Dorsey put some sort of fact check thing next to a couple of Trump's tweets. And, it ruffled feathers. And apparently, I don't know if the tweets were taken down, but essentially some stuff that Trump put up on Twitter's now saying like, oh, we're fact checking this. And now Trump's coming out and basically saying like, oh, we need to regulate these social media sites. They shouldn't be taking things down, which on one end makes me think this could be a positive for the social media sites. Zero regulation means more advertising money piles in and all that stuff. I don't know. All I know is I'm down huge pre-hours on Twitter.
Why? Where is Twitter trading?
It's trading down what looks like to be like $2 pre-hour. I think about down 8%.
It's wild what kind of power Trump has with tweets still.
I think this is going too far, though. I mean, what the hell are they? First of all, why is Twitter changing what he writes?
Twitter is down over $3, and I'm with you. I think Jack Dorsey's a damn clown, and for him to just, the way he's handled this, he should have just not done anything, which was his original plan.
I mean, Jack Dorsey's a radical. When you think about his agenda constantly, he's a genius at getting his name in the major headlines.
But if someone writes something on Twitter and then it comes across different than what they wrote, is that basically what he's going to do? He's going to change?
No, he said he's not going to end up doing that. There's no way that's.
But isn't that what they did with Trump?
Yeah. Well, no, what he's saying is basically that they're going to be like fact checking politicians and certain people on Twitter. So if you say things
how are they going to do that?
I don't know, but that's what they literally did to a couple of Trump's tweets, and that's what like started this whole thing. So
I would not touch Twitter for a while. I think this is going to be slippery for a bit short term. I think there'll be a better entry point than today.
So the question is, all right, I was just about to say, do we buy Twitter on the dip? You're saying
no.
If you look, all these tech stocks are down again today for the same reason they were down without this happening, is that they are doing a rotation out of those stocks.
I would wait on Twitter for another week or so. I bet you it gets beaten down more.
Too bad.
I don't know. I have to look at the chart, but I don't have the charts in front of me to see.
Now down 10% pre-market. Unbelievable.
It's tough with that. That's a big deal. Like that type of thing is, we're talking about democracy. At the end
about
of the day,
$2.5 billion wiped out of market cap from Twilio overnight from just some Twitter bullshit. Or what did I say?
Twilio?
Or from Twitter, yeah. Not Twilio. But
your top of your head is being cut off the way you're sitting. There you go.
Well, we should probably start by saying that Dow looks to open up a little, and the reasons with everything that happened with Boeing. Luckily, we sold some Boeing extended hours yesterday. Well, I shouldn't say luckily. We'll see what happens. But Dad, what happened with Boeing yesterday?
Well, I mean, first of all, I wish I had an order out overnight because it got up to 158 3/4.
Glad I didn't sell.
I didn't have a sell order out there good till cancel. I just had it out for last night's extended market. But Boeing, all they did was they're going back into production on the 737 MAX, and they don't have approval yet, but they're starting.
But they'll get it.
Yeah, I think they'll get it too. But
Boeing's in bed with the U.S. government. It's not like that company right now. If you've never owned Boeing, you'd be foolish not to buy it here even. Like when you really think about it, I got in that stock for the first time ever like an idiot over 300 a few months ago, thinking I was being clever after that dip from 450. And, at this point, I want to even get in Boeing even more. I've gotten more aggressive in the 140 range, but I still love it.
Well, now I think today you have to be careful after that move. And if you notice, the airlines are down. There was a couple of announcements talking about what the capacity is now. Yeah, the business has doubled from where it was, but it's still down 90%. So there's a long way to go before there's any normalcy in these airlines, even though demand is picking up.
That's what I was going to say yesterday. It's one thing for demand to pick up and for people to want to travel. It's another thing to be able to, based on what you're able to actually get for a flight. And I'll tell you firsthand, I would be going somewhere next week if it wasn't for such limited flights going around the country. I just decided this isn't worth it. I'm not connecting to get a couple states over. So
yeah, that's why I'm waiting to come kick it with you in Charleston. It's just, I want to wait for things to be more free flowing in general. That's part of, I think, the psychology behind this too, is is everything open on top of the capacity with flights, where people are worried about going to a destination and being limited with their experience.
I really think I need to grow a nutsack right now and buy Twitter pre-market while it's down 9%. It come back a little bit because I already own it. I either need to cut my losses and get out or double down. I can't just look at it.
Why can't you just wait to double down when it dips more?
I don't see it being down 10% today off of this. I see that being the pre-market overreaction, and then maybe it ends up being down 4.5% when the market closes. So I think, and I could be dead wrong here. It seems like it's a massive dip for.
That's a scary narrative, though. When you're talking about freedom of speech, that's not to me. I would be careful there. I don't the Hong Kong narrative around Baba. That, those types of things worry me short term, to just, try to jump in with the right entry point. I think you got to wait.
Well, what will it mean if Trump gets this through his, what will it actually mean to Twitter?
I mean, to me, it's a positive, like I was saying before, because it means that Twitter is no longer able to regulate which posts get posted and which ones don't, which means Twitter turns into a free-for-all, which means that anybody could advertise, anybody could say anything. If you're a shareholder of Twitter, how is it a bad thing if they're no longer able to censor things?
So how does that play into when the advertising starts for the election?
Well, that's what this really comes back to.
That's what I mean, though.
That's what this argument's about, is exactly that.
But they wanted to get rid of all the, quote, false news, the fake news.
But that's never going to happen. There's been fake news since Benjamin Franklin started the printing press.
No, but I think
the news was built.
Facebook has been able to identify a lot of fake news and get rid of it, supposedly, right?
I just don't see how, with how much information overload exists in the world and people putting out content, how do you actually monitor that on the umpth degree? I don't see that being actually possible.
Well, Dad, I was on the phone with Mike before when Zuckerberg was on CNBC doing his little.
Yeah, I didn't see the interview. I just knew they were going to be talking about it. And I caught one line where, he didn't think this was something to do. It's not their job to be the police.
I agree with him.
I'm just remembering, how many times has Twitter dipped hard because of some feud issue that it seems like it happened with the government, really since day one with this company. And it always, I don't want to say it always bounces back, because looking at the 1 year chart of Twitter, it's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. But, looking at the 5 year chart, it does kind of bounce back to an extent. So that's where I look at this, and this needs to be a real big deal for Twitter to really lose a couple $1 billion in market value from some nonsense with the government.
Well, I think you're just going to see an ongoing debate here for a while. That's the issue. There's not going to be clarity on this today by the end of the market day, that closing. There's no way.
The bottom line is, if you're in big already, to average down doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, you probably have too big a position.
To average down, to bring down your,
I mean, your better chance is to sell some and then hope it, well, not hope, but if it does drop, then you have room.
God damn it.
It's hard to do that, though. But it'll make you feel better short term.
But you'll have a great opportunity on Twitter. We'll jump in that hard together soon, because there's no doubt if, there'll be something that comes out of this that gives it closure, and then going into the election, they're going to be a winner. And I know we talked a bit earlier about the notion of them embedding video. If I'm Twitter, I'm trying to figure out how to have opt-ins for reporters, where you could have live, they already are the live news feed. Let's bring video to that. I don't understand. They're all big on these GIFs and memes. How about live video? We saw how hard Facebook's gone in the paint with that.
Believe it or not, we're actually, this right now is live on Twitter.
Good. Twitter.
Yeah.
Jack Dorsey, if you're listening, get on your video game, boy.
Yeah,
Come
if anybody's listening, buy Twitter. We need that stock to be back up to 33.60 for me to make some money. While we're talking about mistakes here, Baba is another one that again, I bought Baba a few days before earnings last week, probably like an idiot following Davey Day Trader's advice. But no, I've always liked Baba, and I got them at like 210-ish, thinking this company's been trading on a discount for a while just because of everything happening with China. And at the end of the day, it should be kind of trading like Amazon does, because if anything, they own more of the country. I was in China for a month, and I'm telling you, China is Alibaba. And even if everything were to fall apart with the trade deals and everything like that, China is their own country. Everything happening in that country is going to continue to happen. And Alibaba runs that country. And I know that from being there. I kind of think that Alibaba has been holding somewhat steady since its earnings. So it tells me that maybe, there's a lot of people that aren't giving up on it like me, but there's no doubt I own a lot of Alibaba. I'm down big on it from my original position. And I'm looking at it kind of the same as Twitter, where I'm like, do I just run for the hills here and find my next play? Or do I try and, trade my way back into the green?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Amazon is down about the same as Alibaba is pre-market. So it is trading with Amazon for 2 days.
I think Baba short term, I'm worried about it. I think there's some more downside coming because of this Hong Kong crap, just off of the psychology of there being way more turmoil now with China. And that's not naturally just going to impact the sentiment around Baba being a Chinese stock. And I agree with you, Dan. It's a home run long term with their dominance there, but there's no doubt that there's going to be some ripple effects from this.
Yeah, and that's where I wonder if the ripple effects have really been happening for months without anybody really talking about it till now, because at the end of the day, some people would sit here and say that there's no reason Baba is not right now a $250 stock, and it's at 198. It should have possibly been a $250 stock before it even had earnings. So
here's the problem, though. You look at this Corona, it's kind of, when you think about it, put on the back burner the whole Hong Kong situation from the world thinking about it. It literally was like out of sight, out of mind the last few months. Hong Kong protests stopped because of this virus, which was very convenient for China any way you spin it. But now you ask yourself that people are now getting back to some sort of normalcy, getting around, getting out and about. Now this is starting to hitting the fan. With what's going on with Hong Kong as it being independent, it's not happening anymore. So you have to ask yourself, what does that mean for Baba right now? That can't. And
I think what it actually means for the company is nothing. What it means for investment narrative, it could mean a lot. But back to the valuation, Dad, perhaps you could explain this a little bit better. But you look at Baba, it's got a 25 times PE. You look at Amazon, it's got about 120 times PE. So tell us, what's the difference there?
Well, it's what you're talking about right now. The difference is you have trust in investing in the United States, and you don't have 100% trust of a Chinese company because of what's going on. So you can't really put a value on Baba compared to Amazon because of that difference. And that's why it's cheaper. It probably would be twice the amount if it wasn't for what's going on over there.
And and the problem is there short term, that trust. What's going to change with that trust narrative with U.S.-China relations? Let's be real here. That's going to be an ongoing thing while Trump's in office.
Yeah, I think it's until the election. It's obviously election related to a certain degree.
It's hard to imagine Baba having a lot of upside here, in my opinion, the rest of 2020. I could be wrong on that. I don't see there being much bright side there until the dust settles on. Even if Trump's reelected, I think there's a lot of upside after that. There needs to be clarity on what's happening with the election.
Baba is a Secretary Mnuchin comment away from being up 6% in a day. That guy just has to come on TV and be like, yeah, we're starting to talk to China again. Both sides want to work towards a deal, and then boom, Baba.
I don't see that happening. I don't think Mnuchin can really do anything with this Hong Kong situation. This is a fundamental problem.
The guy's
which has been from day one the issue. China and the U.S., even when you look at how China labels their premier president, it's not real. They're communists. They have titles to appease American media and the government officials. They're not us at all. They are not a democracy. And this is going to become an ongoing major turmoil, in my opinion. I really think this is going to get worse before.
While we're talking about China, let me bring up a question that I got yesterday for this show related to China. And it says, do you think countries as well as the U.S. would be skeptical of doing business with China and be forced to move business elsewhere within Asia or even the USA, seeing that there have been few viruses stemming from China region? A few.
Dad?
It's already going on. People are moving away from China. I mean, it's a slow.
Nice job, Andrew Tefero. Awesome, man. Good to see you. That's great.
What a trade. I mean, for you to have the balls to buy Penn under 5 when it looked like the world was completely falling apart and looking like all casinos were shutting down. I mean, I couldn't do it. I was watching
Andrew
my Penn hold it.
It's that
hey, Andrew, I have a question for Andrew. Why are you asking us? You just made $27.
Yeah, I think Andrew should be on this show. And Andrew, honestly, Penn long-term is a great company. I think we all can agree on that. You can't lose when you're in the green like this, though. I think short-term, take some profits off the table and put them back to work. But I would definitely hold on to most of that stock.
Maybe take your profits and keep the initial investment and ride it out. I think personally, the reason Penn is starting to get a whole nother legs of momentum here is because what happened with Joe Rogan and Spotify, and that's starting to take its own narrative where people are starting to realize how big podcasts could really be. And then you look at Barstool, which is a huge asset now of Penn, and Barstool is kind of killing the game with podcasts. They have probably 3 of the top 5 podcasts in the world, and they're not slowing down anytime soon. They're going to keep coming out with more. So I think people are excited by that whole entire thing. And yeah.
Sandra, good to see you.
And saying that,
at least in a picture.
We've been talking about Penn nonstop. It's very often you see, or not often that you see a company go in such a straight line from 16 to where it's at. But I will say it's kind of shown a little bit of resistance the last couple of days, which gives me confidence that it could just start going right back into rocket ship mode, because that's what you needed to see. It was a little bit of a pullback, and you saw the same thing with DraftKings. So I'm starting to look at Penn as a company that's going to go back to all-time highs.
Yeah, I mean, that Barstool purchase, we all know, like everyone now, even our own father is a huge Dave Portnoy fan. Let's be real. That is huge for that stock long term. Their demographics have expanded. The pandemic has made them a major winner for recognition, their brand identity. Alex, what's going on, buddy?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the Barstool thing, it's such a early stage company that, you know, when you look at what they're doing, they have their hands in alcohol companies. They're coming out with their own vodka with like an old NHL player that's already out, the Pink Whitney it's called, and they teamed up with New Amsterdam to come out with Pink Whitney, which is like their own vodka drink. And, you know, when these guys get behind something, all the stoolies get behind it, it blows up. They own the
They might be getting behind Lodell one of these days. Like, you know, all they are is full of great ideas.
Yeah. So we're a pro Penn podcast, if that's what you want to call this. Mashup. We love Penn.
Absolutely. I mean, with where gambling's heading, like we talked about yesterday with marijuana, there's a couple things out of this pandemic trends that will be expedited. Legalized gambling and legalized marijuana.
Yes.
Income for the government. It's very cut and dry. So figure out a way to get ahead of that narrative and make a fortune in the process. Like I was talking about Canopy yesterday. I'm buying some Canopy today to hold on to. I know their earnings, I believe, are tomorrow. I think there was a very impressive earnings in the space a week ago with Aurora. And I'm expecting Canopy to have a great earnings with what's been going on in Canada. And we are getting to that point here. Dan and I have had enough one-off conversations with people domestically where we know where marijuana is heading. So that to me is going to go on a run on a whole nother level here in the months ahead.
it always comes down to the vice stocks. Those are the ones that do really well over time.
So, Dad, just like you used to say, alcohol, people are always going to drink. It's going to be the same with marijuana, just like sex and caffeine. You could throw that and gambling into the mix.
Yeah. I mean, coffee's a vice, and,
addiction stocks. You can't lose. People are people. We know what they like. So buy into that.
Well, it's a combination of those plus the competition in that group. And if there's less competition, it's an easier ride.
And also, just to kind of say what we've personally, the three of us have been talking about a lot, that kind of is a reason to be bullish on the cannabis stocks, the casino stocks. And when I say casino, I'm kind of talking about DraftKings at the moment, more so being bullish on the notion of states legalizing gambling, legalizing weed. And when you go past the pandemic, the states are all in a lot of trouble right now. They're burning a lot of money. They're not having their normal revenues come in. So when you look at little things states could do to raise their profits and to get back into the green and to recover from this, legalizing marijuana, legalizing gambling is a great outlet for states to get a lot of revenues. And if you listen to the last DraftKings earning call, the CEO said that, he couldn't say the exact states, but there are at least a dozen states that have never considered gambling in the past that were, basically about to legalize it for the exact reason I just said. And it's the same thing with weed.
Yeah. Makes sense. So what about today, guys? What do you think? Got a big move in the market over the last couple of days.
I'm looking at your AA. I'm looking at loading up there this morning.
Yeah, I like Alcoa. Those are the names that are going to still do well. Credit Suisse is up 2% pre-market because it trades over in Europe.
I think I'm going to get wrecked today in the market because I'm just looking at my different stocks pre-market, and none of them really look that great except Boeing. But it's a long day. I'm going to be driving down to Fort Lauderdale in a couple hours. I'm going to be refreshing my phone on the regular. And hopefully the sunshine drive brings some luck. All right, so we're being asked which marijuana stocks you recommend. I have a marijuana stock, and it hasn't been doing as well as I like. Mike yesterday was big on Canopy. They're the leader in the space. Another way to invest in
I think
Constellation brand.
Is it CNG? Or what's their stock symbol? CNG?
I'll tell you right now. It is CGC. And
CGC.
Yeah, and I'd say a safer bet that's also gotten beat down the pandemic where you can play more than just weed is Constellation Brands, which is STZ. They also own Corona. They own a lot of different, not the virus, but the alcohol. And they own a lot of different wine and beverage companies, and they made a huge investment in Canopy. And that's kind of
Canopy, Dan. Because for the niche itself, when Andrew's asking about marijuana stock, they are the market leader. And when you look at how much money's behind them, we know how powerful it is to be first to market. They've made major inroads in Canada. We are going to see the same thing in the U.S. And I like them. I like them overall as the number one marijuana stock.
Personally. And I think we should add to that Mike yesterday was saying that it could be a choppy road ahead for years, up to 5-10 years for these marijuana stocks. We're not saying that overnight these are stocks.
I don't think, Dan, I think it's expedited. I think pre-pandemic, it might have been 4 to 5 years. I think we're looking at 2 at most. That's how I look at this. So I think, it is going to be choppy short term, but I don't think we're on a 5 to 10 year window at all. I think you'll be able to see value in that within 18 to 24 months on another level.
So
the other thing is if Trump gets out.
CGC, guys, CGC. We got some comments, not CGC, but CGC. So Kathy. The other one that's kind of interesting is Aurora Cannabis. And I saw that the South Korean wealth fund just bought a ton of that a few days ago. So that kind of made me a little bullish on them because just, why did they buy them? So they had a huge move after that, and it's been super volatile since. But again, I think anyone looking at the weed stock should be looking years out and looking at this as a healthy entry point, possibly just because of all the unknowns. And if things
that's a long-term hold.
Together.
It's a good position now to sit and be patient. Nothing to make quick money on by any means.
But thinking of politics in there, if Trump is defeated, that's going to be a big winner. Any of those marijuana stocks or nationwide. because I'm pretty.
Even if Trump's reelected, I think they're going to be a winner after he's in, because he's not going to care once if he is reelected about knowing that he's going to not be able to get another go around. So it's not going to matter if he's not appeasing his supporters at that point.
Yeah, but
so
he's against pot. Period.
He's against pot because he wants to be back in office. I don't think he actually gives a shit when if he's in office again and wins. He's trying to just win.
It's all the public perception. So obviously, if Trump's reelected and people think he's against pot, it's not going to be great for those stocks unless he then decides he's not against pot, which could be
I think will
3
be
years out.
Trump if he's reelected. I think he'll shift a narrative on that.
Something that I used to do, and I've switched my strategy on as of recently, and Dad, I'm curious how you play this, but I used to try and chase companies into earnings when I first got into the market, where I'd see, like, for example, Netflix had earnings coming up, and the day of, I'd be like, I'm going to buy, hoping for a big pop after hours. But what I've realized is a way better way of going about it is follow the companies when they have earnings, and when companies have pretty good earnings, wait for the sell-offs. And then about 2 to 3 days after those earnings, if the company sold off, that's when you get in. And that's kind of what I'm seeing with Take-Two. And what I learned was it's a lot easier for individual people like us to buy and sell stocks than it is for big funds to unload really, really big positions. So when a big fund wants to get rid of their entire position of a stock, it oftentimes takes a few days because they need to find the buyers. So if you start to see a stock going the opposite direction when you think they had good earnings, that's usually why. And then you could usually see what exactly is happening, which is a big fund is unloading it, and you wait for that 2.5 day, and then usually you get the pop, which is exactly what happened with Take-Two. TTWO. Yesterday, it found that next level bottom. It looked like the big seller was done, and then it came back to the green. And I could see that stock continuing to go up, even with a couple dips. But I like Take-Two. TTWO.
Yeah. On that note, in the old days, it used to be what they call a 3-day rule. If there was bad news or good news on a stock, it would take 3 days for the move to be complete for various reasons. Part of it before, it would be the communication of that news getting around the globe. Now everything's really quick, but the funds own so much more and they have so much more to buy if it's a good story. So it does take a couple of days to get people positioned the way they want to be positioned. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But buying before the earnings and taking a shot is just, a roulette wheel.
You're gambling. I used to do that when I first got in the market, and I learned with Netflix. I wish I just held it because I'll never forget. Netflix was trading at like $90 a share back in 2016, and it was when I first started to get into the market. And I would ask Dad, "Which stock do you like?" And he'd be like, "Oh, how about Netflix? They're a public company." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And and I tried that. It didn't really work out. I've made some good money on Netflix along the way, but I think that's a great strategy because you can kind of just sit back, wait for things to unfold, and just see exactly what's happening, and then get in when you know the big seller finally leaked it all out.
I also think, like what we've seen where Leon's taught us, our buddy Leon Goldfeld is a beast in the market. He's taught me a lot about following certain CEOs and executives and their history of buying aggressively before earnings of their own companies. So there's been a prime example of that was MGM last month. Their execs, their CEO and CFO went hard in the paint on insider buying, and sure enough, they've gone on quite the run since. So I think a lot of that also, like we've talked about, has to do with there being a lot of shorts on a stock and them being wrong and having to cover it, which is called a short squeeze, which will then make the stock rally even more on top of a good day in the market. So that's always something that's interesting. I've been trying to find specific execs to start following that are at the head of companies that have a track record of having immense success when they buy up their stock before a run into earnings.
Yeah, and the other thing to think about when someone is getting out of a stock, let's say a large institution, that oftentimes they don't want to take a chance and sell it all, in the first 2 hours of the day. they will spread it out over the entire day and get an average price that is somewhere close to the average price of that stock for the day. So they could basically say, oh, I sold it at the average, which is all most of these guys want to be.
Is average.
Is average, is to protect their jobs. So you'll see once a seller starts on the stock that it's going to most likely be there all day long. Someone will be spreading it out. And it's just a algorithm that sends the stock for sale either every 10 minutes or when there's a bid that shows up, and tries to keep the average of the day. That's all.
Interesting. So is that the same then when you see it on the other end with buying?
Yeah. Yeah, they'll do it both ways. Because they'll get such sizable orders, millions of shares in a given stock on any given day. And the best way to buy or sell that from their standpoint, for the safety of their job, because these are just, guys who get the order from the portfolio managers and then they have to execute it, is to do it over the day so they don't look bad.
It's something
so can you tell our viewers and listeners where somebody could just see a snapshot of an example of a stock in action to just see a chart?
Well,
so they could start paying attention to what we're talking about.
Well, pick any big name that trades millions of shares a day that the institutions are getting in and out of. And if a stock starts out down, for example, there's a good chance there's a big seller out there for the day. And, I don't know which stock. Pick any stock. It doesn't really matter.
Take Twitter.
Let's go with Twitter.
Take Twitter. There could be someone today that got an order to sell 2 million shares of Twitter. And the guy's sitting in his trading room. He says, how should I do this? And, they talk about it and say, the best way to do this is to sell it over the whole day because I have no idea where it's going. And if there's all of a sudden, like Danny said, that it turns around and goes up, at least you have ammunition to keep selling it at the up prices at the end of the day, so your average looks better. If you sell it all in the first hour, and the stock goes up 10% from there, you look like an idiot.
That's definitely something that I've been trying to be more disciplined about when it comes to buying stock. When there's a stock I want to buy, one of my weaknesses is I'll get excited and I'll want to open the entire position like immediately. And if I timed it wrong, that's it. It's tough for me to then double down if I already went all in on the position. There's no doubt the smart way to do it if you want to buy a stock is to buy either a third of the position, half the position, even 20%, and kind of pick your spots. If it goes up, it's okay to buy more. If it goes down, you could double down. But when you buy or sell everything at once, you think that that's going to be the highest price. That's going to be the lowest price. And it's impossible to really know that. And it's not.
I think, like Dad said it best yesterday with Carr, like he had 7,500 shares, sold off 1,000 to take some profits. I think it's about having that comfortable ratio, around that 10-15% mark, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, but you
work around.
You take Twitter. I mean, today, some guy out there who's a portfolio manager that owns 5 million shares of Twitter, the prudent thing for him to do might be to let's peel off 20% in case this thing turns into a shitstorm. And if enough guys do that,
which could make it go lower.
Right. But he's not going to just sell it, boom, done. The guy will sell it over the day to protect himself.
So guys,
under the radar a bit.
Let's wrap this up so we could watch the opening here. Let's take a stock of the day here that we're picking. I'll start. Seattle Genix, SGEN. It's a cancer treatment stock. It's something I own a little bit of, and I think it's an interesting long-term play that is very interesting, I think, actually. So SGEN is my stock, short-term and long-term.
Dad?
Well, we haven't even seen the market trade since we picked last night, so I'm sticking with Credit Suisse or Deutsche Bank for the day. I think they still have room.
And I'm going with your AA pick, Dad, and I'm going to pick up some CGC today. Like
I was the banks are all.
About.
So far, the banks look really good. Deutsche Bank is kind of lagging right now compared to the others.
What's your?
So are you going to be pulling the trigger on Deutsche?
What's up?
Are you pulling the trigger on some Deutsche Bank stock?
No, I can't do that.
What's your price target on Deutsche Bank if you like it?
I haven't looked at the chart today, but I think you have 20% room on the upside. But if these banks are going to
All
have,
right.
All right, guys.
Hopefully, everyone gets in the green today, and we will see you guys and girls tomorrow.
Let's make some money.
all right, take care, guys.
Take care.
Bye.